Emily, what might the difference between colorblind and color-brave be? What do you see that as?
I think, had you asked me that question probably even 25 years ago, I probably would have said that colorblind is something that we all need to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we should do in our lives because we should love all people, and why should you allow yourself to see color to kind of draw lines between of difference. I think over the last 25 years, I've really just been on a personal journey to explore myself, my privilege, even having grown up in a poor community that was predominantly white. I still was afforded many privileges because of the color of my skin. Doors were open to me because my parents had access to a system that they could navigate. Whereas the kid down the street who was black didn't necessarily have the same access.
Darcy says the same things of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I think growing up in an environment that was predominantly white, with a lot of class difference within even whiteness, you're sort of raised to not see color, but more class as a defining factor. And I think now, having had the opportunity to kind of live and work in that community as well as in a predominantly African American community here in New Orleans, I think now I can see it's not about being colorblind, it's actually about being color brave. Like having the courage to say, I am racist. There are many moments in my life that I have engaged not intentionally in racist ways, but in unintentional ways based on my experiences. And that's okay. I have to acknowledge it. I have to own it. I have to understand why it exists and why it has happened so that I can ensure that other people can learn to understand their own personal experiences and journeys.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find so much trouble with is the way all the media, and not all the televised media, the 24-hour news cycle, not necessarily the writers, but in so many ways we try to figure out who the racists are. It's like, that is so unhelpful, because it's like putting a scarlet letter R on really brash racism, when really the problems are that I feel like those systemic microaggressions we talked about, those things where it's like, well, if that person's a racist, whether it's Donald Sterling or any other Donalds out there that you might want to talk about, we don't have to. If they're the racist, I don't act like that, so I can't be. But that's not really the problem with systemic racism.
Right. No, and I think that there's explicit racism and then there's implicit racism. And I think both are dangerous. I don't think it's an either or, but I think implicit racism is very dangerous because it is the actions and the beliefs that people have that don't actually ever come to surface.
Unless some big explosion happens and then people make all kinds of comments on Facebook, right?
Right.
So what do you think, moving forward in this country, being a country of vast diversity, being in a city that is really known for being a place of meldings of cultures, and not like all culture becomes the same, but you have like really distinctive cultural elements that are a source of pride in a place like New Orleans. What do you think New Orleans, or your perspective, has to show the country? And not saying New Orleans is perfect, but the idea of what does it mean to actually appreciate others' cultural differences and racial differences and still learn how to like be a community together?
Yeah, I think I don't have the answer, to be honest. I think this is something I think about all the time. I'm very grateful that I find it in my church community, where, I mean, I searched for a church here for years. They all felt they were always racially divided.
Yeah. Most segregated part of the country on Sunday mornings is church. Yeah.
And it took me a really long time to find a space where I felt like all people were valued and loved and cared for and made each other feel like a community and a family. And so I'm very grateful to have that. But then I think about, well, what did it take to create this community? Because people drive. I mean, I physically drive a distance to go to my church. People come there from all over the city because this space is so special and
Mm-hmm.
and blessed. And I think part of it has to do with the leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and part of it has to do with the people who create that space that is welcoming of all people and acknowledges difference. And so when I think about where our country is headed, I fear that we don't have that leader, like that person who is sort of leading the charge. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it's the responsibility of a single person.
Yeah.
I really actually think it is the responsibility of people within this movement, mainly white people, to start talking about their own racism, the implicit racism that we all experience and have, and how that impacts the people that we love, who are brown and black and not just like us.
Do you have any people in your life that you love who are brown and black?
My family, my husband.
Do you worry about them?
I do, and it's interesting. I mean, Sunny and I talk about it a lot. I think I talk about it way more than he does.
Yeah.
And I've been really reflecting on, like, why do I always have to, why am I always bringing up this conversation? And then I realized, like, he has been living a life as a black male who is, he's had privileges but is also oppressed for almost 45 years. He's tired of talking about this shit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all right.
He's tired.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't have to keep talking about it. And I haven't had to talk about it for 39 years of my life. So my charge is to, like, listen to him, give him space when he wants to have space to talk, but not force him to engage in a way that he doesn't feel comfortable. But at the same time, really think about, what does this mean for how we raise our children, who the world sees as black, but who are both parts of us. And so I think that, and we don't have the answers by any means. I think he and I are just on this journey together, just like really exploring our own privileges, both from his, more so from class, mine from my race, and how that's played out in our lives, and how that impacts sort of how we bring our boys up in this world that feels so divisive and so divided on so many things, where, for them it shouldn't just be black or white. Like, Jack's favorite book right now to read, I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but his favorite book is called Mixed Me by Taye Diggs. And we have seriously read it every single night this week. And I was like, well, why do you like this book so much? Like, what do you find so exciting about it? And he's like, well, I just like that it talks about how he has a brown daddy and a creamy mommy. Creamy peachy mommy.
We use pink skin in our home, pink skin.
He says peach skin.
I like it.
Well, for a long time it was brown and yellow.
Yeah.
We were brown and yellow.
Yeah.
He's starting to have more awareness around the word black. And I think for him, in this idea of darkness and lightness and good and bad, but for him, that book, like, really helps him identify and identify both parts of him as important and making up who he is.
What's your hope for your boys? What's your biggest hopes for them?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I feel like there's so many. I mean, I think I want them to be seen for their purest brilliance, not for, this is ironic, right? Like, I want people to be colorblind towards it, but I want them, like, I want them to be seen for who they truly are, which is what we see in them every single day. They're brilliant, they're smart, they're hilarious, they're spirited, they are full of everything, and they have so much to bring to the world, and that's what I want people to see. I think my fear for them is that people will miss that opportunity because they are hung up on what they look like.
And maybe even me, I'm asking this question too pointedly, right? Like, but just that there's such a space of needing to talk through this if we're ever going to get past it. You don't heal from pain if you just pretend it doesn't really exist. Right. You got that's the bravery thing for me, and I think I wonder if your husband will be okay that you pretty much hinted at how old he is.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
It's all right. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm just so excited by your work. I think it's so important, that we give people the space to process and talk about their experiences free of judgment and shame, and allow them to own who they are, who they've been, but acknowledge that that doesn't define who they will become.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so important
for all of us.
For all of us.
And human processing,
Yeah.
right? Like just getting through it.
And I think I feel really privileged to be in a space, in a nonprofit that really talks about race, class, and privilege it's one of our values. It is like who we are. We live into it every day. But so many people don't have that space to grow and develop. And I think you're providing that for people, and it's really exciting and important work.
Well, thanks, and pray for us, because it's not always easy, but I wholeheartedly agree.
Justice is not easy.
No, it isn't. Thanks, Emily.